looking to grow the understanding for students, as well as when we're saying we want everyone to be able to access the information that we're teaching, as well as then being able to go a little further as well. So we like to celebrate mistakes and the struggles. Now, of course, it doesn't mean we're just wanting the students to struggle and they just sit in the class and struggle, and then we say, great, that's our learning. We do a lot of direct instruction mixed with questions, problems, investigations that the students do. And when they do that and they start to think about how they can apply math to different subject areas even, and the skills base, then they really grow the brain. And that's the research that's been done to show that when there are some mistakes, struggles, and we learn and go through that process, that we really start to grow our thinking. And that math mindset is about creativity, visualizing, and flexible thinking. So we're really looking to apply math and not do math. So we're looking to see the connections that math creates in the world and not just how can we calculate things. What does math learning look like at DA? So I have a couple of pictures here from a grade 1 class. And what math at DA looks like, it's energetic, right? It's dynamic. The students are learning. They're not just sitting at desks with worksheets. They have manipulatives, which are objects that they can use to show their understanding and be able to apply it. They might be also working with each other. So you can see from these two young ladies here that they were working together on place values, and they were talking together to kind of confirm and reflect back on what they were doing to see what goes in which place value, what's the number, what does that mean? And so that discussion between students is also invaluable through that process. That goes into our engaging learning environments. So the students get to experience math through many different things. So we talk about here the digital tools. Zorbits for kindergarten to grade 3 is a digital tool that has games, but games is kind of in quotes because they're learning activities that kind of open their understanding of how to manipulate and use different math concepts digitally. They're not yes or no games. They're games that expand that thinking for them as well. And one of the things that we do with the digital tools in the upper grades is look at things like Mathagon. Obviously, even in lower grades, we're using iPads, and that's to give them the ability to show their thinking in many different ways, right? We always don't want to say, if you can't show it this way, then it's not correct. Explain your thinking. Show what you're doing in the classroom and kind of how you can make those connections. So that's Mathagon. We're also looking through IXL, obviously, to still practice some skills. You know, when we look at learning at DA in math, it doesn't mean that we're not still teaching basic skills, multiplication, division, knowing the multiplication table. Those are all part of that learning process, but we don't want to be only focused on rote memorization skills. We want to look at how to apply those skills that we also, you know, work on developing those core fluencies. Obviously, with iPads, we're always looking to develop and push our thinking. It allows us to be digital in these COVID times. Obviously, it's been a great success for our classrooms to be able to share their thinking and look at ways on Zoom digitally, as well as recording information for themselves as well. And lastly, it's inquiry-based, right? We're looking to use our learning based on what the students ask and what the students' passions are as well. One of the things that I've been going into classrooms to talk about is what are the real world connections? You know, when you're doing math, it's not just to do math so that it's over here in this separate area. Math is to apply and understand and make things easier in the world. And so we're really trying to take the students' questions, their own personal experiences, and really grow that math learning from that point. How we're setting up the class. So these are kind of some of the positives that we would look at for the students. They can achieve the highest levels wherever they come into the class from a different school or different grade. Mistakes are valuable, like I talked in that brain growth, right? Our brain grows when we're making mistakes, learning from them, and starting to apply information to how to solve them. Questions are really important, obviously. If I have questions of them or they have questions of me, we're kind of going back and forth and they feel part of that class setting. Math is about creativity and making sense. Again, it's not about worksheets, it's about how do I apply that information, right? You go to those next levels in school and it's not just can you do a worksheet, it's how can you understand and apply the math thinking. Depth is more important than speed. So this is one of the things that we try to focus on, giving the students time, but also looking at activities that are specific to not just about speed. Can you get it done in this time? But can you get your learning and be able to explain what you know in the time that's available? So that involves a lot of different activities. Math class is about learning, not performing. So again, back to the worksheets. We might have some worksheets, that are there to kind of reinforce things and kind of go over and do that. It doesn't mean that they're evil necessarily, but to have that as the only way of learning, we're looking to create learners there. Math is about connections and communicating. And again, math is to simplify things. It's not to make it more complicated. So we're trying to teach the students how to be able to understand more of the world through math. One of the questions sometimes is asked by teachers or parents is DAA a Eureka school? So we use Eureka as a resource. It's widely available. It's available online. So looking at information there for parents is easy, free access. DAA uses US Common Core standards with Eureka. What's great is that it allows us to kind of closely align some of the learning activities and investigations using some different resources that we have there. We always look at DAA to push the thinking through a variety of resources. So although we might use Eureka sometimes, we're also looking at digital tools. We're looking at, if there's a great program or investigation that's done out of Canada, somewhere else in the States, another school internationally, or one that we've used from one of the teachers, our amazing teachers at DA, then let's share that and use that resource to be best for the students. And like I said at the bottom, we're looking at best and most current practices, right? And we're not only looking at internally at DA, but we're looking to other schools using connections, other teachers, programs, other coordinators like myself are in discussions all the time through social media and email about what we can do to kind of grow the learning for our students. Next. Oh, sorry. So during the student learning time, these rich math tasks are looking at the power of questions, seeing the openness of numbers and visualizing what math looks like. And that's really an important thing that we're definitely talking to the teachers and students about is what does that look like? Not only what does that number mean, but what does it look like? And being able to visualize really gives a depth of understanding that is great for the students, as well as their understanding long-term into middle school and high school. And also looking at some of those math connections, right? Starting to say, here's where math is, it's all around us, right, in our life. And I know I'm obviously biased that I love talking about math with the students and things like that, and obviously promoting that with the other students, but it really is, it's everywhere around us in everything that we're doing. And so getting to see how important it really is. One of the things quickly, just for the people here in the meeting, is I just want to ask you to see, how do you see these shapes growing? So just 10 seconds, you can kind of think about how you see these shapes growing, and I'll show you some examples of how they might be viewed by different people. Give you a second here. Okay. So when we look at this, we might, and the reason that we do activities like this or talk with parents about kind of seeing these three cases and how that goes is just to show that the way that we approach math, we want to use the great community we have to have so many different approaches and ways to view something that we can use that information as a class to even grow outside of what we might think is one way. So when we look here, we get to see all these different ways that they're growing. They're coming from the top, they're being inserted from the bottom, exploding out like a volcano, using a step ladder. It's triangles, it's pushing aside and adding one in. It's adding diagonally, or it's adding ones to each other there. So when we talk about things with the kids and we start to see, they're like, oh my goodness, like there's so many different ways. And when we get to have those conversations with students, we get to see that learning, that community of learners in the classroom at DA that pushes our thinking beyond only one right way, but to many different ways. One of the things that I'm going to be talking about and have been this year talking about with teachers and the students is about how do we reflect on our growth and our understanding. So this is an example from some of the lower elementary students. Some of the questions that you might be able to ask as parents, they might be asked in the classrooms to do as going. And then we look at the next slide is going to be for the upper elementary. So we look at ones where we're trying to increase the complexity of the questions, but also expecting that as they grow through DAA, that they're really able to talk more deeply and richly about the learning that they're doing. And ultimately at DAA, we're always trying new things out. So whether that is what's best practice or looking and reflecting on what we've done in the past, we don't want to be able to sit here and say, well, this is what we've done, so it'll just work forever. We want to say, this is what we've done, but how can we make it better? So a couple examples here, I'm just going to share. These are from some classrooms on social media that we put out about getting to go into grade 4 and 5, seeing hands-on learning, investigations going on in KG1. We have some grade 2 digital work in terms of looking at number lines. I was in KG1 where we were talking with the teacher there about how do we make the number 3. We were looking in my class about the Ironman and the different distances and talking about how do we bring in our math understanding there as well. And then with Ms. Stevens, looking at the questions that the students develop and raise. So I know it might be a lot, but I just wanted to ultimately say I'll answer any questions people might have about that. But I think ultimately at DA, through the support of Natalie and Craig, we're really trying to open ourselves up to as many types of learning as we can to help the students learn as many ways as they can to ultimately be as successful as they can at DAA, no matter what their prior experience was and no matter what their destination in the future is.